I guess today we're going to be dealing with one of the most challenging things in the whole entire world, although it's one of the simplest. Letting it be. This was a thing that my mom said to me all the time, and I heard a story about somebody years ago that every single thing that they wanted was right on the opposite side of them just relaxing and letting it be. And they strived and strived and strived and strived and strived, and they forced and forced and forced and forced, and then they backed off. And when they backed off and they were so exhausted because they had put in so much energy into everything trying to make this thing happen, that when they finally got to the point, they threw their hands in the air, relaxed, and said, you know what, I can do no more. I'm done. I don't have any more energy. And then, you know what? Just like that, everything started to fall into place. Well, my mom would say this to me all the time. My brother says it to me. My wife says it. Just let it be. Just let it be. My friend, John Paul DeJoria, the co-founder of Paul Mitchell, he says all the time that everything turns out great in the end, and if it's not great, then it's not the end. And imagine that. Imagine if we just allowed it to be. I was on the way to school this morning. I was with my daughter, and she's 15 years old. She was speaking this language that I tell you, if I wrote it down and I transcribed it, it would probably be one of the most confusing things ever, but I understood it because I just let her be. She said, like, and I was all, and she was like, and I was all, and I was like, what the giat? You know what I'm saying? And she looked at me, and I was like, yeah, I guess I do know what you're saying, because I just let her be in her place. And then I did a little get off my lawn, and I was telling her that how hard it was to understand what she was saying. But this thing kept coming back to me over and over again. Just let it be. If somebody's being nasty to you, let it be. If somebody's being great to you, let it be. If somebody wants to bless you, let it be. If somebody wants to take from you, let it be. And watch the long term. And this is the hardest thing in the world, although it's the simplest. The simplest is to let it be and let it take its course. And the other side is to force it and say, this part needs to happen right now. And I can tell you this, in my speaking career, right? There's been things that I put out on social media that I've wanted to make sure that everybody, and I do emails and do all these things. And every single speaking engagement that I've had, and I've been very, very fortunate. I've got NiftyCon coming up, which is digital marketing for attorneys in Vegas in September 18th through the 20th. I'm the keynote speaker there, and you guys, honestly, it's going to be incredible. It's the #1 digital marketing conference for lawyers, specifically for attorneys. The way I got that is I was at a conference speaking for real estate. And when that happened, there was someone in the audience that happened to have a friend and a husband in that space with NiftyCon. So they called me. Well, the reason why I was speaking at the real estate conference is because of my wife's friend from when she was in probably middle school. And what God kept letting me know is, if you'll let it be, I'll be the best PR agent. If you let it be, I'll be the best marketing agent. If you let it be, I'll teach you business, but not in the traditional sense. But if you let it be my will, let it be my plan, let it be my timing, it'll be exceedingly abundantly more than you could ever imagine. And this is the thing that I keep running into, but I keep wanting to make it complicated. And I don't know about you guys, but you guys seem to be the ones who are wise, and I seem to be the one who keeps ramming my head against the wall, thinking that I'm going to force something. And every single time I try and force something, then I turn and I look at my beautiful wife, Brooklyn, who continues to let it be. And guess what happens? Friendship grows, business grows, opportunities grow. But when I'm forcing it, it's almost as if I'm suppressing and causing it to stay away from me. When I'm letting it be, it seems to grow. So that's the whole emphasis of today, which is let it be, and it's in Proverbs 25, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. And I've been getting knocked upside the head with this. Even today, like right now, my daughter texted, right? She texted my wife through her friend's phone and said, hey, we're at Carlsbad High School and we're in a lockdown. And right away, I wanted to say to my wife, I'll just go and I'll just get her out of school. And then my wife said the same thing. Let it be for a second. Let her give us a call. Not that we're not concerned, not that we don't want to take, but she said, let it be for a second. Then my daughter texted me and she said, hey, Dad, we're in the costume closet, but if you want to come and get me out of school, that would be great too. And then she just put like a little emoji with the tongue out and a wink, wink, like I just want to leave school. Well, now I know that she's safe. I let it be. It works out. It doesn't mean that we don't take action, but it's amazing what we can do when we allow God to work through the process. And it's, again, I resist this stuff all the time. Some cool things coming about too. I'm going to put my notes in the bio. So if you guys want to get the notes, you'll be able to download those. I'm going to do them in my handwritten notes too. And if you're on with us on YouTube right now, you'll see my remarkable tablet, which you guys should get to, which is unbelievable. But also it's my handwritten notes. I'm going to do that. And we're still working hard on the Wisdom and the Vibe, which is a prayer journal or a journal for reading the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. And so that is coming. It's not here yet. And the other thing, station identification, buy the book, The Vibe. It's right behind me. It's on Amazon. Click the link in the bio. But also I'm working on a playlist for Spotify. So the playlist will actually be Wisdom and the Vibe, and it'll be all of the corresponding proverbs for the corresponding days. But that's enough on that part. Let's jump right in to the proverb, which is 25, the corresponding proverb, corresponding day, 3,000-year-old wisdom that will be applicable today and every single day. So the first one in this, let it be, is God has it. So I think the first thing that we need to understand is that God really has everything. Like he built it. It's his will, it's his time, it's his plan, it's his timing. And when we allow that to happen, it's amazing what'll be. This is not an invitation, though, to just step aside and say, I don't need to do anything at all. It just means that before we step, we start asking and we stay in communication. Constant communication will break down all walls. Constant, uninhibited communication will break down all walls. And so just realize that God has it. And in verse 2, it says, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but to search out the matter is the glory of kings. So the glory of man is to search out all the things, and the glory of God is to conceal a matter. Sometimes we don't have to know exactly all the little tiny details. When we focus on him, he'll allow us to know exactly what we need to know, exactly when we need to know it, and we can move on from that point. In verse 3, it says, as the heavens are high and the earth is deep, so are the hearts of kings are unsearchable. And in verse 27, this is actually a duplicate, because this verse 27 is actually in two different areas today. It is not good to eat too much honey, nor is it honorable to search out matters that are too deep. Don't take on too much, like a good thing. You don't want to gorge yourself on it. I heard this the other day. A couple of my friends of mine had a business deal, and this happens all the time, and I did it, where it actually worked. And I think they were surprised by their by their success, and they thought because they had succeeded, the hubris set in and said, we just need to expand and do more and more and more and more of this thing. Well, sometimes more isn't better. And what I would suggest is just take the time and ask God for that. Second one.
Unknown caller.
It's intense heat will purify, right? So with an intense heat will purify in verse 4 and 5. This one here is probably, this is a verse that comes up a lot. It says, remove the dross from the silver, and the silversmith will produce a vessel. Remove the wicked officials from the king's presence, and his throne will be established through righteousness. Remove the dross from the silver, and the silversmith can produce a vessel. So with silver, when they take silver ore, they heat it up into a molten state. All the dross, which is all the impurities, floats to the top. They take a stick and they scrape it off, which creates, they are left with just the silver that can become sterling silver. So the metaphorical thing here is that God is going to take you through intense heat, which will heat you up, which will get you uncomfortable, take the impurities, it'll go to the top, and then you can take those impurities away. But to be able to get the impurities out, sometimes it takes intense heat. And we can find this in our financial life, in our personal life, our professional life, our spiritual life. When there's things that are challenging, then the things that are challenging inside of us that we're holding on to a lot of times bubble up, and then we can deal with them. So intense heat will separate and do that in verse 4 and 5. Chill out. His timing is perfect. Well, think of this, letting it be. When you let it be, you have to chill out. Yeah, that's what my wife tells me all the time. Brooklyn is so amazing with this, and she's just constantly like, chill out. Like, let it be. And imagine if you knew in your heart of hearts that God's timing was perfect. How many times we beat our head against the wall and then only to get exactly what it is that we wanted, right? And so those are the challenges. I'm going to take a call from this young lady because I think it's important. So, McKenna.
Yes. Hello.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Are you okay? Do you want to come home?
I have to stay for 2 periods.
Okay. You're live on the podcast right now. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want to come home or you need to come home?
I'd like to go home.
You'd like
to
go
home. But I
home.
still have to come back.
Okay. Is everything okay? Everything okay with school?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But now you just kind of want to come home because you were able to?
Well, I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they cleared it out.
They cleared it out. So everything's good.
Is Mom working?
Mom's working. Yeah. I can, what, so you're just going to call your mom as opposed to calling me? That's what it is?
Well, you're on a podcast.
No, I'm saying you're on the podcast right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can come.
Okay.
I can come and get you. So what time do you want me to come and get you?
As soon as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, when I'm done here, I got a couple things to do, and then we'll do it. Sound good? Is this so we could get some ice cream?
No, this is so I don't have to be here.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear. Well, I'll do this and then I'll be with you. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. I love you.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. So this is the cool thing. I let it be. My daughter calls me. She's okay, which I think is awesome. And, but also too, you could hear it in her voice. I could hear a little, she's a little uncomfortable, but also too, you could see that she's also using this as a way to be able to get out of school, which I think is kind of funny too. But his timing is perfect. And we were talking about that in verse 6 and 7. It's this. Do not exalt yourself in a king's presence. Do not claim a place among great men. It is better to say to you, come up here, than for him to humiliate you before the nobles. So understand that you're going to get lifted up in perfect time. And so let it be. Stay humble. Stay humble because you don't want to be humbled. You either stay humble or you'll get humbled. And I've found this in my life so many different areas. Next one is don't concern yourself with silliness. And this is verse 8 and 10, or 8 through 10. It says, what you have seen with your eyes, do not bring hastily to court. For what will you do in the end if your neighbor puts you to shame? And so there's so many things that we can try and be right. I tried to be right last week on flag football. And you know what? I just felt bad. I felt bad about it because I was trying to be right. The other coach was trying to be right. I was trying to force me being right. And then I look back at it and I'm like, do I need to concern myself with this silliness? There are so many things in this. I learned from my brother all the time. My big brother, Rob, is that there's so many things that you don't need to concern yourself with. And think about this. If you spend time with the Lord and ask him, like, what should I deal with today? Then he'll give you those exact things. And then you can just let it be. And that's the whole thing of today. And it just keeps coming back in verse 18, 19, and 26. Also, I'll read verse 18. It says, like a club or a sword or a sharp arrow is one who gives false testimony against a neighbor. So, guys, just take the time and let it be. Let it work itself out. I tell you, most of the time, it really will. And when I say most of the time, I find that when I get in the most challenges is when I force things to happen. Next one is, does it make sense? So in verse 11 through 14, this was big to me. Like apples of gold and settings of silver is a ruling rightly given. Like an earring of gold or an ornament of fine gold is the rebuke of a wise judge and a listening ear. Like a snow-cooled drink in the harvest time is a trustworthy messenger to the one who sends him. He refreshes the spirit of his master. Like clouds and wind without rain is one who boasts of gifts never given. And the question here is, does it make sense? Like when you look at it here, apples of gold in settings of silver, and then at the bottom, clouds and wind without rain. That doesn't make sense. The apples of silver in settings of gold makes sense. So if you look at these things, when you're going to make a decision, or we're going to make a decision, if it makes sense with where you're at, if the things line up and they go together, it's amazing how simple things can be, right? And so it talks about a spring, like a spring of fresh water doesn't put out salt water. So think about, if I have this in my heart, but I'm doing this thing that's opposite to it, those things won't really match. That's why we say that if you put your heart set, your mindset, and your skill set, you put them in line, you create an irresistible vibe that people feel great around you because there's consistency and congruency. Next one is patience is strength. And this is where I need to work on strength, because in verse 15, it says, through patience, a ruler can be persuaded, and a gentle tongue can break a bone. Patience is strength. And I fail on this a ton. I don't know about you guys, but again, you seem like you're all perfect. But I fail on this so many times because I don't sit back and become patient in exactly what's going on. Next one is too much of a good thing. Too much of a good thing isn't always better. Or too much of a good thing or more isn't always better. And this is something that I have to learn from all the time, and I learn from it in business. In verse 16, it says, if you have honey, eat just enough, too much of it, and you will vomit. Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, too much of you, and they will hate you. Verse 16 and 17. And then in verse 27, it is not good for you to eat too much honey. It is not honorable to search out matters that are not that are too deep, and that's why I was saying that it was a repeat in verse 27 of Proverbs 25, and it's letting it be. Like, too much of a good thing can be bad. More is not always better. Sometimes more is better, but we've got to stay in communication with God, and he'll give us the wisdom, then he'll give us the knowledge. Then when he gives us the knowledge, he'll give us understanding, insight, discretion, discipline, strength, and it'll lead back to the fear of him or the respect of him, which he'll give us more wisdom. Next one is know your audience. And in verse 20, it says, like one who takes away a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar poured on a wound, is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. Know your audience, know who you're dealing with, know where they're at. And because your vibe is not about the energy that you bring in, it's about the way that people feel about you when you leave. And if you can take and you can harness the vibe in any aspect of what it is that you're doing, it's amazing, because it unlocks so much different opportunity, because it really is the missing ingredient that changes everything. And so the next one is stay graceful always. And in verse 21 and 22, your enemy is hungry. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. I used to love this as a kid when I read this, because I was thinking, oh man, like, if I simply am nice and graceful to someone who's nasty to me, it's like heaping hot burning coals on their head. Well, when you're young and you think about this, like, you want a person who does you wrong to get wronged. But it sounds completely opposite when God says it. Is like, you know what? When someone does you wrong, do right by them. And when you continue to do right by them, when they speak ill of you and you speak well of them, you just stay gracious and you don't fall into, the gossip back and forth. It's actually more effective than going at them and trying to down them. This was a hard one to learn. Next one is speak life. And in Speak Life, it's verse 23 and 24. The north wind that brings unexpected rain is a sly tongue, which provokes a horrified look. Better to live in the corner of a roof than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife. And let's see, like cold water to a weary soul is good news from a distant land. Speak life into people, use their name, use specific things. And the opposite is true. When you're not speaking life to someone, the tongue has the power of life and death. And when you speak life, and speaking life is simply this, use their name and something very specific. I sent a text out to my brother, speaking life to him today, and just telling him like the things specifically that he had done in my life that I absolutely love and why I admire him. When you do this, it really changes the environment. We do this with our men's group every Tuesday from 7:30 to 8:30 in Carlsbad, California, and everyone is invited to come and enjoy this. But what we do is we base it around speaking life, using a person's name in the room, and you watch the person light up. When you hear your name, when you hear something specific, you see humans only want two things. They want to be seen and they want to be heard. And when you can see somebody for what they did, and you can hear what they talk about, you see what they do, you hear what they talk about, and then you repeat it back to them. It's speaking life, and it does major amounts. Whether you're a organizational leader, whether you're a husband, a father, any of those things, but it has to be specific. It cannot be overarching, because then if it's not specific, it's as if you didn't say it. The last one is just self-control is gold. And this is in verse 28. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. And what God is saying here is self-control is just letting it be. Imagine being able to control yourself so he can do the work. So as we finish up today, when we say let it be, what God says at the end of this in verse 28 of Proverbs 25, it says it is like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. Imagine if you could control yourself so God could be larger. Imagine if you could shrink back so God could be bigger. Imagine his plan as opposed to your plan, his will as opposed to your will, his timing as opposed to your timing. It's probably one of the most challenging things, and it's not simple, but it is. It's simple. It is simple, but it's not easy. It's probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever do is to just let it be. And when you let it be, it means that you're working off of faith and not circumstance, as opposed to you stepping in or me stepping in and saying, no, I got this, that we step back and we allow God to work in that thing right now, right here. For those of you who are in a dark spot, for those of you who are going into a valley, imagine this. God had this time planned for you when you go into the valley and it's dark and the circumstances are crazy. Imagine this. Imagine that is the time for you to rest. When it's dark, you rest because he needs you to rest, because he's got another mountain for you to climb, that he's going to get you on top of the mountain. And when you get on top of the mountain, you know what he's going to have you do? Look down into the valley for the place where you choose to go and rest again to get ready to climb the next mountain. Let it be. The corresponding proverb, corresponding day, Proverbs 25, because it's April 25th, 2024, 3,000-year-old wisdom that is applicable in your business, in your leadership, in your relationships, in your culture, every aspect. And it's amazing, though, because sometimes we overlook the simplicity to go and look for the shiny. But I invite you, look into Proverbs. Spend the time, and not from a religious standpoint, not from a ritual standpoint, but just from a relationship standpoint. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.